When you picture ancient Rome, you probably see crowds in white togas striding through marble forums, a vision shaped by movies and art. But that image is mostly a myth. Roman clothing was far more diverse, colorful, and complex than the Hollywood version. The idea that everyone wore togas or that Rome was a sea of white is simply not true. What people wore depended on status, wealth, gender, and even the law. Clothing was a direct statement of identity and social rank. Today we'll bust the biggest myths about Roman fashion and reveal what Romans really wore. Let's dive in and discover the truth. The toga. When we think of ancient Rome, the toga is often one of the first images that springs to mind. It's become synonymous with Roman identity, a symbol of their power, their civilization, and their unique style. This iconic garment, with its flowing folds and distinctive drape, has been immortalized in countless paintings, sculptures, and films. But despite its fame and symbolic importance, it's crucial to understand that the toga was not everyday wear for most people. It wasn't the standard outfit you'd see on the streets of Rome on an average day. The reality of Roman fashion was far more diverse and practical. Think of it as the ancient equivalent of a formal suit or a tuxedo. It was reserved for special occasions, important ceremonies, and official duties. The toga's elaborate design and the sheer amount of fabric made it impractical for daily life, and reserved for special occasions where appearance and status were paramount. Imagine trying to work in a field or navigate a crowded marketplace while wearing a massive draped garment. Only adult male Roman citizens wore togas, marking them as members of the ruling class and participants in the political life of the Republic and later, the Empire. The toga was worn for official business, such as attending the Senate, participating in legal proceedings, or performing religious ceremonies. It was a visual declaration of their rights and responsibilities as citizens. The vast majority of the Roman population, women, children, non-citizens, and enslaved people, were excluded from wearing the toga. Their clothing reflected their different roles and social standing. These groups never wore togas, instead opting for more practical and comfortable attire suited to their daily tasks and social positions. Their daily attire was the tunic, a far more ubiquitous and versatile garment. The tunic was a simple T-shaped garment, easy to produce and wear, making it the go-to choice for everyday life. Tunics were typically made of wool or linen depending on the season and the wearer's social class. Simpler tunics were made of coarser wool, while finer linen was reserved for those who could afford it. Tunics were comfortable, practical, and worn by all classes, albeit with variations in style, color, and embellishments. Even wealthy Romans wore tunics beneath their togas. The streets of Rome were filled with tunics in various styles and colors, reflecting the diversity of its population and their daily activities. From the bright colors worn during festivals to the more muted tones of the working class, the tunic was a canvas of Roman life. So, while the toga holds a prominent place in our imagination of ancient Rome, it's important to remember that Rome was, in reality, not togas. The toga was a symbol of status, power, and citizenship, a visual marker of belonging to the elite male class. It was not a universal uniform worn by everyone. Instead, it represented a specific segment of Roman society and their participation in the political and social life of the city. So, forget the image of a city draped solely in togas. Rome was a sea of tunics, a vibrant tapestry of everyday life, reflecting the diverse roles and realities of its inhabitants. The tunic tells a more complete story of Roman society than the toga alone ever could. The pervasive myth of all-white Roman clothing, a vision often conjured by the sight of faded statues in museums, is a far cry from the vibrant reality of ancient Rome. For centuries, the image of pristine white togas and tunics has dominated our perception, leading us to believe that the Romans favored a minimalist, monochrome aesthetic. But this is a misconception, a trick of time and the elements. The truth, revealed through archaeological discoveries and surviving frescoes, tells a different story. A story not of stark white but of dazzling color. Romans, far from shying away from color, embraced it wholeheartedly. They loved color and used it as a powerful tool to communicate social standing, display wealth, and even express their mood. Color was an integral part of their identity, a visual language that spoke volumes about who they were and where they belonged in the complex social hierarchy of Roman society. They had access to a surprisingly wide range of dyes, a testament to their ingenuity and trade networks. These dyes, derived from plants, minerals, and even insects, allowed them to create a spectrum of hues that would have made the streets of Rome a vibrant spectacle. Reds, for example, were readily obtained from the humble madder root, a common plant that yielded a range of shades from soft pinks to deep, blood-red tones. Blues, often associated with mourning or the working class, were extracted from the woad plant, a source of indigo dye that, while less expensive than other blues, still added a touch of color to the wardrobes of many. Yellows, prized for their brightness and association with the sun, were derived from saffron, a spice so valuable that it was worth more than its weight in gold. Bright, richly dyed garments were not just a matter of aesthetics, they were a clear and unmistakable sign of prosperity, a visual declaration of one's ability to afford the costly dyes and skilled artisans required to create such luxurious fabrics. Conversely, dull colors, or the absence of vibrant hues, spoke volumes about one's economic standing, immediately identifying the wearer as belonging to the lower echelons of society, where affordability dictated the simplicity and lack of color in their clothing. Some colors, like the legendary Tyrian purple, were so incredibly expensive and prestigious, derived from the secretions of a rare sea snail, that only the elite, the wealthiest and most powerful members of Roman society, could even dream of wearing them. Purple stripes, carefully woven into the togas of senators and equestrians, served as a visual marker of their elevated status, a constant reminder of their privileged position within the Roman hierarchy. Solid purple, the ultimate symbol of power and authority, was strictly reserved for the emperors, a visual decree that set them apart from all others and reinforced their absolute rule. Women's clothing in particular was known for being especially colorful, a reflection of their role in society and their appreciation for beauty and adornment. Stolas, the long, flowing dresses worn by married women, and pallas, the elegant shawls draped over their shoulders, were often rendered in vibrant hues, showcasing their taste and social standing. Even soldiers, often associated with uniformity and practicality, had their own color codes, with different legions and ranks distinguished by the colors of their tunics and cloaks. The real Rome, therefore, was not the monochrome world we often imagine, but a vibrant kaleidoscope of color, a bustling metropolis where every shade and hue played a significant role in defining social status, expressing personal identity, and shaping the visual landscape of the ancient world. The white marble look, so prevalent in museums and textbooks, is simply a trick of history, a consequence of the fading and weathering of pigments over centuries, obscuring the true, colorful nature of Roman society. Roman women's clothing was distinct and full of meaning, not just a copy of menswear. Respectable women never wore togas, only those shamed by society did. The stola, a long sleeveless dress, was the badge of a married Roman woman. Unmarried girls wore simpler tunics, adopting the stola upon marriage. Outdoors, women draped themselves in a palla, a versatile shawl that signaled modesty and status. Women's garments were often made from finer fabrics and dyed in bright colors. Female fashion was a world of its own, with strict rules and powerful social messages. What a woman wore spoke volumes about her identity and place in society. The foundation of every Roman wardrobe, for both men and women, was the tunic. This simple garment served as the base layer for nearly all outfits, reflecting practicality and comfort in the warm Mediterranean climate. Tunics were worn by all ages and classes, from the humblest slaves to the most powerful senators. The style and embellishments, however, varied greatly depending on one's social standing. While the basic design remained consistent, the quality of the fabric and the presence of decorative elements clearly distinguished the elite from the commoners. Men typically wore knee-length tunics for work, allowing for ease of movement and practicality in various occupations. These tunics were often made from coarse wool or linen, designed for durability rather than luxury. During colder months, men would sometimes add a belt to cinch the tunic at the waist, providing extra warmth and a more defined silhouette. A cloak was also a common addition, offering protection from the elements. Cloaks like the penula, a heavy hooded cloak, were essential for travelers and those who spent extended periods outdoors. The sagum, a simpler rectangular cloak, was primarily used by soldiers, providing warmth and protection in the field. Its color often denoted rank and affiliation. And the lacerna, a lighter weight cloak, served different purposes, often worn in more formal settings or during milder weather. These cloaks ranged from travel to military use, each designed to meet specific needs and circumstances. The choice of cloak reflected both practicality and social context. The toga, a large draped garment made of wool, was reserved for formal occasions by male citizens. It was a symbol of Roman citizenship and status, carefully arranged to convey dignity and authority. Women layered an undertunic with a stola, a long sleeveless dress that indicated marital status and respectability. The stola was typically fastened at the shoulders with clasps or brooches, and topped it with a palla when outside, a versatile shawl or cloak that could be draped in various ways for both warmth and modesty. The palla added an extra layer of elegance and sophistication to a woman's attire. Children wore simple tunics. Their clothing was designed for comfort and practicality, allowing them freedom to play and move. Boys marked adulthood, typically around the age of 14, by switching to the plain white toga virilis, signifying their transition into citizenship and responsibility. This ceremony was a significant rite of passage in Roman society. Enslaved people wore coarse, dark tunics. Their clothing was deliberately simple and unadorned, reflecting their lack of status and freedom. They were never permitted to wear togas or stolas, reinforcing the visual distinctions between the free and the enslaved. Every garment signaled status, role, and freedom, acting as a constant reminder of one's place within the complex social hierarchy of Roman society. Roman clothing was a visual language everyone understood, a complex system of symbols that communicated a wealth of information about the wearer. What you wore told the world exactly who you were, instantly conveying your social standing, occupation, and even your political affiliations. It was a powerful form of nonverbal communication that shaped perceptions and interactions in daily life. In Rome, clothing was a billboard for status and wealth. Most wore wool, but the rich could afford fine, soft, bleached, or brightly dyed fabrics. Linen from Egypt and cotton from India were luxury imports. Silk, brought from China, was the ultimate status symbol, worn only by the wealthiest. Color was crucial. The poor wore dull shades, the rich flaunted vibrant hues. Purple, especially Tyrian purple, was the color of power and strictly regulated. Details like embroidery, stitching, and accessories also signaled rank. Even the way a toga was worn showed leisure or importance. Roman dress was a constant, silent conversation about power and position. Every citizen's outfit advertised their place in society. Roman fashion wasn't just about taste, it was enforced by law. Sumptuary laws dictated who could wear certain materials, colors, and styles. Only male citizens could wear the toga. Foreigners and slaves were barred. Purple-bordered togas and tunics marked magistrates and the elite. The width of the purple stripe was legally defined to prevent impersonation. Eventually, solid purple and silk garments were reserved for the emperor alone. Breaking these laws was a serious offense, sometimes even treason. The state used clothing to reinforce social order and identity. In Rome, your wardrobe was assigned by law, not just by choice. Roman clothing had some surprising details. Both men and women wore underwear, a simple loincloth called a subligaculum, and women also wore a breastband. Trousers were seen as barbaric, but Roman soldiers eventually adopted them in cold climates. Keeping togas white was a challenge. Fullers cleaned them using urine and clay. A dazzling white toga was a mark of wealth and political ambition. Footwear was diverse, sandals for indoors, heavy caligy for soldiers, and soft leather shoes for public life. Senators wore special shoes with crescent buckles. Women's shoes were often colorful and decorated. Even shoes signaled status and occasion. Roman dress was practical, symbolic, and surprisingly modern in some ways. Every detail from underwear to shoes told a story. The myths of white togas and uniform dress persist because of faded statues and romanticized art. In reality, Roman clothing was colorful, complex, and deeply tied to identity and status. The toga was rare, the tunic was everywhere, and women's fashion was its own world. Details like underwear, trousers, and laundry reveal a society much like ours, concerned with status, comfort, and self-expression. Clothing was a language regulated by law and read by all. The old myths endure because they're simple, but the truth is far richer. By seeing what Romans really wore, we see them as real people, not just marble statues. The reality of Roman fashion is far more fascinating than the fiction,